Have you ever heard a question from a married man that sounded harmless, even caring, but deep inside something told you it was wrong? A soft tone, a calm smile, and yet, the moment you answered, you felt the ground shift beneath you. That is the art of the married liar. He doesn't always lie with statements. He lies with questions. Questions that seem small but carry hidden hooks. And if you can't see through the disguise, you end up doubting yourself, apologizing for things you never did, until you fight against your own mind instead of against his manipulation. Ancient thinkers warned us of this trap. From Seneca to Marcus Aurelius, they taught that deception rarely comes head-on. It comes sideways, planting seeds of guilt and fear until you destroy your own confidence. 2,000 years later, nothing has changed, except that the questions have become even more subtle. In today's video, we'll expose the 8 most dangerous questions married men use to manipulate and control you, and show how to answer them with clarity, strength, and unshakable self-respect. The question that makes you doubt your own feelings. There is a question married men often use when they want to create confusion without showing it openly. It usually sounds like, "Are you sure you really feel that way?" At first glance, it appears harmless, almost caring, as if he is simply checking on you. But beneath the surface, it is a tool to make you second-guess yourself. The moment you start doubting your own feelings, he gains control. Why does this work? Because feelings are deeply personal. When you feel something strongly and someone challenges it with calm words, you can begin to wonder if you are overreacting, if you are too emotional, or if you are wrong for feeling what you feel. Married men who use this tactic know exactly what they are doing. They want you to stop trusting your inner voice and start relying on theirs. This question creates a quiet imbalance. Instead of holding on to your truth, you find yourself explaining, defending, and justifying. The more you explain, the less confident you feel. And the less confident you feel, the more power he gains in the conversation. It becomes less about your experience and more about his version of events. He sets the frame and you step into it without noticing. Psychologists explain this as a classic method of manipulation, shifting the ground under your feet. Once you lose certainty in your emotions, you are easier to guide, easier to persuade, and easier to keep in his control. He no longer needs to prove his point. He just needs to make you doubt yours. The danger of this question is that it sounds so innocent. If someone yelled at you or insulted you, you would immediately notice the attack. But when a man softly asks if you are sure about your own feelings, it feels like concern. That is why it works so well. You lower your guard, believing he cares, when in reality he is steering the entire conversation in his favor. Over time, this can lead to a dangerous pattern. You begin to silence yourself before you even speak. You might think, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe my feelings aren't valid. Without realizing it, you place his perspective above your own. This is exactly what he wants. Because as long as you believe your emotions are unreliable, you will keep turning to him for clarity. The truth, however, is different. Your feelings are signals. They may not always point to the final truth, but they always matter. They are your internal compass, showing you when something is wrong, when a boundary has been crossed, or when your spirit is unsettled. To doubt them completely is to give away the most important guide you have in relationships, your own intuition. How can you protect yourself from this tactic? The key is awareness. The next time someone asks, "Are you sure you feel that way?" Pause before answering. Instead of rushing to defend or justify, remind yourself, yes, you are allowed to feel what you feel. You do not need permission to validate your emotions. You can calmly say, "Yes, I am sure. This is how I feel." That simple statement places the power back in your hands. Another powerful approach is to flip the frame. If he questions your feelings, you can respond with, "Why do you ask?" This forces him to reveal his intention instead of hiding behind the disguise of concern. Often manipulators cannot handle being challenged directly. The moment you shine light on the tactic, it loses strength. Remember, married men who use this question are not always interested in your well-being. They are interested in keeping control of the dynamic. By making you doubt yourself, they remove your foundation. Do not let them. Stand firm in your truth. Even if you later adjust your perspective, let that choice come from your own reflection, not from someone else's disguised manipulation. This question may sound small, but its effect is huge. It eats away at your confidence slowly until you barely recognize your own voice. The way to stop it is simple. Trust yourself more than you trust the words designed to confuse you. Once you do that, his question loses all its power. the question that makes you feel guilty for setting boundaries. One of the most common tools married men use to manipulate is a simple but dangerous question. Don't you trust me? On the surface, it sounds gentle, even caring, as if he is hurt that you would doubt him. But the real aim is not to build closeness. It is to make you feel guilty whenever you try to protect yourself. This question flips the frame of the conversation. A moment earlier, you might have stood firm with a boundary, feeling strong and clear. Yet when he asks, "Don't you trust me?" suddenly the spotlight is no longer on his behavior. It is on you. You are forced to defend why you set a limit. You start explaining, apologizing, even second-guessing yourself. Instead of asking whether his actions are trustworthy, you end up questioning your own feelings. It works because guilt is powerful. Most people hate being seen as unfair or suspicious. Married men who use this tactic rely on your kindness against you. They know if they can stir guilt in you, they can make you soften your stance and let go of your standards. Over time, this creates a damaging cycle. The more he uses the question, the harder it becomes to resist. You begin to silence yourself in advance, thinking, if I say something, he will ask if I trust him, and I will feel guilty again. To avoid the discomfort, you give in. Slowly, your voice shrinks while his influence grows stronger. But here is the truth: real trust is never demanded. It is earned. A man who deserves trust will never pressure you to prove it with words. He will show it in actions, in consistency, in respect. A man who has to ask, "Don't you trust me?" is usually trying to bypass accountability. He does not want to prove. He wants you to drop your guard. This manipulation also erodes self-respect. Constantly being pushed into guilt reshapes how you see yourself. You start to believe your boundaries are wrong, that your instincts cannot be trusted, that you should always give more chances. This weakens your confidence, and when confidence falls, so does attraction and respect. Psychologists explain that guilt is one of the most effective control methods because it does not look like an attack. Unlike anger, guilt feels soft. That softness makes it harder to recognize as manipulation. By the time you realize it, you may already be trapped in a pattern of over-explaining and over-giving. Breaking this pattern requires awareness. The next time you hear, "Don't you trust me?" pause. Remind yourself, having boundaries does not mean you lack trust. It means you respect yourself. You are allowed to protect your heart. That is not wrong. That is wise. A strong reply is, trust is shown, not asked for. If you want my trust, prove it with your actions. This shifts the frame back to him. Now he must face his behavior instead of hiding behind guilt. Many manipulators cannot handle that shift because their tactic depends on making you feel small. Once you refuse, the control weakens. It is also vital to separate guilt from truth. Just because you feel guilty does not mean you are wrong. Manipulators count on that confusion. They know if they can make you feel guilt, you will bend, even when your instincts were right. Learning to hold steady despite guilt is one of the strongest shields you can carry. Boundaries are the foundation of healthy connection. They do not destroy love, they protect it. Without them, one person always takes too much and the other slowly disappears. A man who punishes you for having boundaries is not protecting love. He is protecting his power. So remember, when a married man asks, "Don't you trust me?" he is rarely asking about trust. He is asking you to lower your guard. Do not give him that control. Respect yourself enough to stand firm. A man who values you will honor your boundaries, and the one who does not will expose why the boundary was needed in the first place. In the end, guilt is his weapon, but awareness is your shield. Once you recognize the tactic, the question loses its force. And when you hold your shield high, no words can silence your voice. If you want to understand the hidden patterns behind relationships on a deeper level, Carl Jung's method will help you. The link is pinned in the first comment. The question that makes you reveal more than you should. Another subtle tool married men often use in manipulation is a question that sounds friendly, but is designed to make you open up too much. Why are you being so secretive? At first, it feels like he is inviting honesty. He frames it as if he only wants openness, as if you are the one creating distance. But the true purpose of this question is to pressure you into oversharing, so that he can gather information and later use it against you. This tactic is clever because it appeals to your natural desire for connection. Nobody wants to be seen as distant or closed off. When someone you care about asks why you are being secretive, you feel the urge to explain yourself. You want to show that you are not hiding anything. In doing so, you may reveal private thoughts, fears, or plans that were better kept to yourself. The danger here is not in sharing occasionally, but in building a habit of giving away too much. Once you explain yourself too often, you lose the power of privacy. Married men who use this strategy know that the more you reveal, the easier it is to guide you. They learn what to say to calm you, what to say to provoke you, and what to say to keep you in doubt. Every detail you share becomes another string he can pull. Over time, this question erodes your sense of control. You begin to think that being fully open is required, even when it makes you uncomfortable. You start telling yourself, if I don't explain, he will think I'm hiding something. If I don't share, he'll accuse me of being distant. Slowly, you condition yourself to give away more than you wish, and in that process, he gains more power over you. It is important to remember privacy is not secrecy. You are allowed to keep parts of yourself, your thoughts, and your life safe. Having boundaries around what you share is not dishonest. It is healthy. A manipulator blurs this line on purpose. By asking, "Why are you being secretive?" he frames privacy as guilt. He makes you feel wrong for having boundaries. This tactic also creates confusion in your emotions. At first, you feel calm about your decision to keep something private. But once he asks the question, you feel pressure, guilt, and the need to prove yourself. The manipulation works not because the words are harsh, but because they are soft. They sound like care, when in reality they are control. How can you protect yourself from this? The key is clarity. The next time you hear, "Why are you being secretive?" stop and remind yourself that you have the right to privacy. You can respond calmly with, "I'm not being secretive. I simply don't need to share everything." That statement holds your boundary without anger. It sends a message. You are open when it matters, but you are not controlled by guilt. Another effective strategy is to return responsibility to him. You can say, "Why does my privacy make you uncomfortable?" This forces him to explain his motives instead of pushing you to defend yourself. Manipulators often cannot handle that turn because their strength is in making you justify. Once you stop justifying, their power weakens. The long-term solution is building confidence in your right to hold back. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every detail needs to be revealed. Relationships grow through trust, but trust does not mean exposure of everything. It means respect for each other's space. A man who values you will understand that. A man who manipulates will always demand more because the more you reveal, the easier you are to control. So never forget. When a married man asks, "Why are you being so secretive?" he is not really asking for closeness. He is testing how much of yourself you are willing to give away. Do not fall into that trap. Keep your privacy sacred. What you protect within yourself is not weakness, it is strength. It is the part of you that no manipulation can touch. In the end, oversharing does not bring more love. It brings more control. By guarding your privacy, you keep your power. And when you keep your power, no question can be turned against you. The question that makes you doubt your worth. One of the most damaging questions a married man can use to control you is, "Why are you being so sensitive?" It sounds small, almost casual, yet beneath those words lies a sharp weapon. By asking this, he is not seeking understanding. He is shifting blame. He is making you feel that your natural reactions are a flaw, that your emotions are the problem, and that your feelings should be dismissed. This tactic is subtle, but effective. Imagine you raise a concern about his behavior. Instead of addressing what you said, he responds with, "Why are you being so sensitive?" Suddenly, the focus is no longer on his actions, but on your reaction. The spotlight moves away from what he did and shines directly on you, painting you as the one at fault. In that moment, you feel pressure to defend yourself, to explain why you reacted the way you did, and even to apologize for your emotions. Without realizing it, the conversation has shifted completely. The danger of this question is that it attacks your confidence at its root. Emotions are signals. They tell you when something feels wrong, when boundaries are crossed, when respect is missing. But when someone repeatedly tells you that you are too sensitive, you begin to doubt those signals. You start wondering, am I overreacting? Am I broken for feeling this way? Over time, you stop trusting yourself. And when you no longer trust yourself, manipulation becomes much easier. Psychologists often call this tactic gaslighting. It is designed to make you question your reality. Instead of recognizing harmful behavior, you are trained to see your feelings as the problem. Married men who use this know they can continue their behavior without consequence, because you will turn the blame inward instead of toward them. This question also creates shame. Being called too sensitive suggests weakness, fragility, or immaturity. Nobody wants to feel that way, so you try harder to appear strong, which often means silencing your feelings. You hide discomfort, you hold back tears, you swallow words. On the surface, it looks like peace, but inside, resentment grows. Attraction fades when your inner truth is suppressed for too long. The long-term effect is dangerous. A woman who stops trusting her emotions begins to live disconnected from herself. She loses confidence not only in relationships but in life. Decisions feel heavier because she is never sure if her feelings are valid. This is exactly what a manipulator wants. A partner who doubts her own compass and therefore becomes easier to control. So how do you protect yourself from this tactic? The first step is to recognize the pattern. When you hear, "Why are you being so sensitive?" remind yourself that your feelings are not wrong. Sensitivity is not weakness. It is awareness. It is the ability to notice when something is off. Instead of defending yourself, hold to your truth. I feel this way and my feelings matter. That response breaks the cycle of self-doubt. Another strategy is to shift the responsibility back. You can calmly say, "I'm responding this way because of what happened. Let's focus on the action, not my reaction." This keeps the attention where it belongs, on behavior, not on emotions. Manipulators dislike this because it forces them to face their actions instead of escaping through blame. It is also important to strengthen your self-trust. Journaling, therapy, or even simple reflection can help you reconnect with your feelings. The more you practice listening to yourself, the harder it becomes for anyone to convince you that your emotions are invalid. When you stand firm in your sensitivity as a strength, no question can turn it into weakness. Never forget, sensitivity is not a flaw to erase. It is a signal of depth, empathy, and awareness. The manipulator wants to twist it into shame because your awareness threatens his control. By seeing clearly, you expose what he tries to hide. That is why he wants you to doubt it. So when a married man asks, "Why are you being so sensitive?" hear it for what it is, an attempt to silence your truth. Do not give him that power. Stand firm. Honor your emotions. Protect your worth. And remember that the ability to feel deeply is not a weakness. It is one of your greatest strengths. The question that keeps you tied through pity. One of the most manipulative questions a married man may ask is, "Do you know how much I sacrifice for you?" At first, it sounds like devotion, as if he is reminding you of his effort. But hidden inside this question is a heavy chain. He is not only speaking of sacrifice, he is asking you to feel pity, guilt, and obligation. He is telling you that because he gives something, you owe him your silence, your patience, and your acceptance. This tactic is powerful because it twists generosity into a weapon. True love gives freely, without expecting repayment. Manipulation gives in order to demand. When he asks, "Do you know how much I sacrifice for you?" he is not celebrating love. He is cashing in a debt. He is framing himself as the suffering hero, and you as the one who must repay. This is not love. It is emotional bookkeeping. The danger is that this question makes you feel small. You begin to measure your worth, not by who you are, but by how much you can repay his sacrifices. Instead of standing on equal ground, you are pushed into the position of debtor. Everything he does is turned into credit. Every complaint you raise is turned into ingratitude. Slowly, you stop asking for what you need because you fear hearing that question again. Over time, this method builds invisible chains. You feel trapped, not by force, but by obligation. You tell yourself, "He has done so much for me. I cannot disappoint him. I must stay quiet." This is exactly what he wants. By using sacrifice as a tool, he keeps you under his control while appearing noble in the eyes of others. Psychologically, this tactic works because human beings are wired for reciprocity. When someone gives, we feel pressure to give back. Manipulators exploit this instinct. They give, but with hidden strings attached. Then they pull those strings when it suits them, reminding you of everything they supposedly endured or gave up. The more you accept this game, the more you lose your sense of freedom. It is important to understand the difference between healthy sacrifice and manipulative sacrifice. Healthy sacrifice is voluntary, chosen with joy, and never thrown in your face. Manipulative sacrifice is presented as a gift but stored as ammunition. One nourishes love, the other poisons it. So how do you respond when asked, "Do you know how much I sacrifice for you?" First, recognize what is happening. The question is not about love. It is about control. Second, refuse to accept guilt that does not belong to you. You did not force him to make those choices. If he gave, it should have been freely, not as a bargain. Calmly remind yourself, love is not a ledger, a strong way. To break this tactic is to say, if you chose to give, that was your choice. True sacrifice does not demand repayment. Such a response disarms the manipulation. It reminds him that his choices were his own and that you are not bound by invisible debts. Another strategy is to stop playing the debt game entirely. When he lists sacrifices, do not counter with your own list. Do not get pulled into a battle of who gave more. That only deepens the trap. Instead, step out of the frame. Say, "I appreciate effort, but love is not measured by sacrifice. It is measured by respect and care." This keeps the focus on what really matters. The long-term protection comes from valuing yourself enough to refuse pity traps. When you see sacrifice used as a weapon, you can call it out for what it is. A man who constantly reminds you of what he gave up is not proving love. He is proving control, and control is the opposite of intimacy. So never forget, when a married man asks, "Do you know how much I sacrifice for you?" he is not honoring you. He is chaining you. He is asking you to carry guilt that is not yours. Do not carry it. Stand free. Love that demands repayment is not love. It is manipulation dressed as devotion. In the end, pity is his rope, but clarity is your knife. Cut through the guilt. Refuse the debt. And remember that real love never keeps score. The question that makes you accept less than you deserve. Another common question a married man may use to hold control is, "Isn't this enough for you?" At first it sounds like a reasonable appeal, as if he is asking for gratitude. He frames it as though you are being demanding or ungrateful whenever you ask for more. But beneath the surface, the purpose of this question is to lower your standards and make you accept less than you truly deserve. This tactic is effective because it turns your desire for fairness into selfishness in his eyes. Imagine you ask for more time, more honesty, or more clarity. Instead of responding to your request, he looks at you and asks, "Isn't this enough for you?" Suddenly, you feel guilty for wanting more. You begin to think, "Maybe I should not ask. Maybe I am being too much." By planting that doubt, he makes you shrink your own needs. Over time, this question becomes a powerful cage. Each time you ask for something important, he flips it on you. Instead of considering if he is giving enough, you are forced to wonder if you are expecting too much. Your focus turns inward, and you begin policing yourself, cutting your needs down smaller and smaller. Meanwhile, he continues giving the bare minimum and convincing you it is generous. The danger of this pattern is that it rewires your sense of worth. Slowly, you stop believing you deserve more. You accept crumbs and call them meals. You receive silence and call it peace. You get half-truths and call it honesty. This erosion of standards does not happen overnight. It happens one question at a time until you no longer recognize how little you are receiving. Psychologists call this lowering of expectations a form of conditioning. Just like training someone to accept less food over time, manipulators train partners to accept less love, less respect, less attention. By repeatedly asking, "Isn't this enough for you?" they plant the belief that your natural desire for more is a flaw. And once you believe that, they no longer need to work harder. You will lower yourself willingly. It is important to see through this disguise. Gratitude is healthy. It is good to value what you have. But gratitude does not mean settling for less than dignity. A manipulator confuses the two. He makes you think that asking for respect, honesty, or effort is greed. In truth, it is not greed. It is the foundation of a real relationship. So how do you respond to this question? First, remember, your needs are valid. You are not wrong for wanting respect, time, or love. When he asks, Isn't this enough for you? Calmly hold your ground. You can answer, I appreciate what you give, but I still need more in order to feel valued. This makes it clear you see his effort, but you will not ignore your needs. Another strategy is to refuse the false frame entirely. You can say, the question is not if it is enough for me, but if it is the best you can give. This flips the responsibility back to him. Instead of judging yourself, he must face whether he is truly giving his best. Manipulators dislike this because it shines light on their lack of effort. Long-term protection comes from strengthening your standards. Write them down if you must. Remind yourself daily that respect, honesty, and attention are not luxuries. They are basics. Anyone who makes you feel wrong for asking is trying to rewrite the rules in their favor. Do not let them. Standards are not negotiable when it comes to dignity. Never forget, when a married man asks, "Isn't this enough for you?" he is not checking on your happiness. He is testing how low your standards can go. Do not play that game. Keep your standards high. Keep your worth intact. And remind yourself that true love does not fear your needs. It rises to meet them. In the end, gratitude builds connection, but guilt destroys it. Do not let his question confuse the two. Be grateful, yes, but never let gratitude become an excuse for settling. You deserve more than the bare minimum, and the man who truly values you will never make you feel guilty for expecting it. The question that makes you feel responsible for his choices. A manipulative question that many married men use is, "Do you know what I risk for you?" At first, it sounds dramatic, even romantic, as if he is proving his deep commitment. He presents himself as the man willing to put everything on the line. But hidden inside those words is a trap. By asking this question, he is not really honoring you. He is placing a burden on you. He is making you feel responsible for his decisions, his risks, and his potential losses. This tactic is clever because it turns his voluntary actions into your debt. He chose to take risks, but now he frames it as if you must carry the weight of them. Instead of questioning if he should be making those choices, you are pressured to feel guilty for what he does. The conversation moves away from his accountability and lands on your shoulders. Over time, this creates deep emotional pressure. Each time he asks, "Do you know what I risk for you?" you feel a mix of guilt and fear. Guilt because you believe you owe him loyalty in return. Fear because if he loses something, he will blame you for it. Slowly, you begin to accept responsibility for things that were never yours to carry. That is the core of the manipulation. Psychologists call this tactic projection of responsibility. It is when someone pushes their own choices and risks onto another person, forcing them to feel accountable. Married men who use this know it keeps you bound. The more responsible you feel for them, the less likely you are to walk away even when the relationship hurts you. You feel trapped not by love but by obligation. The danger of this manipulation is that it erodes freedom. A healthy relationship is built on choice, not chains. When you stay, it should be because you want to, not because you fear being blamed for his sacrifices. By asking this question, he removes freedom from the equation. You are no longer choosing out of love. You are staying out of fear and guilt. It is important to remember his risks are his own. You did not ask him to take them. You did not control his decisions. If he chose to put himself in danger, or if he risked his stability, that was his responsibility. Manipulators blur this line because they know guilt is powerful. Once you accept the weight of his risks, he can control you more easily. So how do you defend yourself? First, separate responsibility. When he says, "Do you know what I risk for you?" remind yourself that his choices are not yours. You can calmly respond, "Those were your decisions. I did not ask you to take them." This statement puts accountability back where it belongs. It removes the invisible chain he is trying to place around your neck. Second, refuse to play the debt game. Do not argue about how much he risked or compare sacrifices. That only strengthens the trap. Instead, step out of the frame completely. Say, "Love is not measured in risks. It is measured in respect and honesty." Such words break the false narrative and restore clarity. The long-term solution is to build your confidence in walking free of guilt. Many women remain in harmful relationships because they feel bound by obligation. They fear being called ungrateful for what was given or risked. But gratitude should never be twisted into slavery. You can appreciate what someone does without owing them your entire life. That distinction is critical. Another key is to see through the performance. Often men who say, "Do you know what I risk for you?" exaggerate their sacrifices. They speak as if they gave up the world, when in truth they may have risked far less than they claim. The drama is part of the act. The louder they declare their risks, the more they want you to feel guilty. Once you recognize it as theater, it loses its power. Never forget, when a married man asks, "Do you know what I risk for you?" he is not celebrating love. He is chaining you with obligation. Do not let his risks become your prison. His choices are his own, and your worth is not measured by how much you carry for him. In the end, his risks are his story, not your burden. Free yourself from the weight of responsibility that was never yours. True love never demands guilt as proof. It invites freedom, choice, and respect. Anything less is not love. It is control in disguise. The question that makes you doubt if leaving is even possible. One of the most dangerous questions a married man can use to keep control is, who else would put up with you? At first it may sound like a joke, a half smile with sharp edges. But behind it lies a strike at your self-worth. He is not asking out of care. He is planting fear. He wants you to believe you are unworthy, that nobody else could accept or love you. Once you believe this, he keeps you exactly where he wants you. This tactic is effective because it targets self-esteem directly. Everyone has doubts, and manipulators know how to feed them. By asking, who else would put up with you? He makes you wonder if you are too emotional, too demanding, too much. Slowly, his words echo until they sound like your own thoughts. The damage is not only in the moment, the real harm lingers. Even when he is not there, the phrase repeats itself in your mind. You replay it, lower your expectations, and doubt your ability to leave. It becomes a cage without bars, trapping you in your own thoughts. Psychologists call this internalized criticism. When repeated, the victim begins to accept the attacker's voice as her own. Married men who use this know that if they can convince you nobody else would want you, you will stay even when mistreated. Fear replaces freedom. Doubt replaces desire. What once looked like love becomes survival. This also creates dependency. If you believe nobody else would accept you, even small gestures from him feel like blessings. You tell yourself, at least he stays. Gratitude twists into captivity. You lower your standards again and again because you are afraid of being alone. That is his goal. Not a partner who chooses him freely, but someone too afraid to choose differently. So how do you protect yourself? First, see the lie. The words, "who else would put up with you," are not truth. They are control. The real truth is that you are worthy of love and respect simply because you exist. Your value is not defined by one man's opinion, especially not by one who uses insults as chains. Second, rebuild your self-image. Separate who you are from the distorted picture he paints. Write down your strengths and the qualities others have admired. Remind yourself daily that you are not hard to love. You are human, imperfect, and worthy at the same time. Another strategy is to flip the frame. When he asks, "Who else would put up with you?" respond, "The right person will never see me as something to put up with, but as someone to value." This simple answer dismantles the manipulation. It shows you refuse to accept the insult as truth. It reminds both him and yourself that you know your worth. Long-term safety comes from building confidence outside the relationship. Surround yourself with people who respect you. Invest in friendships, family, and growth. The more voices of encouragement you allow in, the weaker his voice becomes. Isolation is where manipulation grows. Connection is the cure. Never forget when he asks, "Who else would put up with you?" He is not revealing truth. He is revealing fear. Fear that you might realize your value and walk away. His fear does not have to be your prison. See it as it is, an attempt to keep you small. Refuse it. Replace it with the truth of your worth. Every manipulative question is not just words. It is a tool to make you doubt, to keep you quiet, to weaken your spirit. But those tools only work if you believe them. The truth is that your value never came from his approval. It was always inside you. Each time you recognize the tactic and refuse the guilt, you cut one of the strings holding you down. And as the strings break, the cage opens. Freedom begins not when you walk away, but when you stop believing the lie. It begins the moment you trust your emotions, honor your needs, and see yourself as worthy of real love. Real love will never ask you to shrink. Real love will never chain you with guilt. Real love lifts you higher. When you embrace that truth, you step out of the cage and you see clearly. The power was yours all along.